Fei made a crazy face and started laughing hard and said that he was going to die laughing. And he also thought what kind of person he was, and now he considers him a simple garbage. Fei decided that he would not kill him yet. He wanted Qin to see with his own eyes how Xiao would become his wife. At the same time, Qin was holding a scroll, and there was fire around it. He found it very tedious to describe the art of war. He received the thunderstorm palm in a previous life, and although it is a low, black-level commodity, it can be exchanged for many natural jewels. He jumped off the bed and grabbed his raincoat, saying it was time to go. After that, we are shown the Tian auction house. Qin went inside a very tall building where a lot of people were walking. He was glad that he had finally returned here and felt a certain nostalgia. Immediately, a lizard appeared in front of him, who greeted him and asked what he would like. The protagonist told him that it was none of his business. He pointed his finger and asked to call Miss Wanner. The lizard immediately turned around and asked him to wait a bit. Then we are shown a beautiful woman surrounded by snakes. The lizard said that a certain young gentleman wanted to see her. Qin noticed that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, but Wanner didn't recognize him and didn't know who it was. He stood next to her and said that he wanted to take part in today's underground auction. She was a little surprised, and the lizard just kept silent with a smile. She asked Qin to follow her. After that, they all walked straight down the corridor. The lizard opened the door for him and asked him to go ahead. Qin and Wanner went inside, and the protagonist said again that he was pleased to be back here again. The girl decided to light her pipe. She knew that they did not know each other, so she asked how he knew her. Qin replied to her that she did not need to know. He was familiar with the rules of today's auction. He took out a scroll and asked her how much it would cost. Wanner was surprised and didn't understand what it was. When she opened the scroll, she was surprised because there was a black-level technique there. And Qin replied that this was exactly the case. The girl said that black-level techniques were very valuable, and therefore asked if he was sure he wanted to put it up for auction, and Qin agreed. The girl said that by selling it, you can get 1 million gold. She immediately approached him and added that if he trusted her, their auction house would give 1.5 million for her. Qin understood that the tempering pill was worth about 10,000 gold. For 1.5 million, he will be able to buy 150 of these. Qin replied to her that they had agreed, but he wanted to exchange this money for an appropriate amount of tempering pills. The girl agreed with him and replied that she would easily arrange it and thanked him. She did not expect that such a young man could have a black-level technique. He assumed that he was a follower of some strong spiritual current who came to Tian to practice. She asked him if he still wanted to participate in today's auction, and Qin said yes. If he remembers correctly, there will be one extraordinary jewel at today's auction. The girl approved and said she would take him to his place. He followed her into the hall, where people were already sitting. She introduced him to the arena. People whispered and said different things. One man had been here dozens of times, but he had never seen her smile so sweetly, and no one knew who came with Wanner. He sat down at a chair and thought that there was a good overview. The girl told him that only the most expensive guests of their auction house can sit here. Immediately, someone started calling Wanner and told her that he had come, from which she was a little surprised. She turned a little viciously and looked at him. She recognized him. It was Mr. Wang Xuan. He told her that he had brought an excellent product today. The girl thanked him for the advertisement and smiled sweetly, to which Wang replied that his father came several times with a question about matchmaking, but she always refuses. He wanted to touch her melons, but she covered them with her hands and laughed sweetly. Wang also laughed and thought it was so easy to embarrass her. He has already discussed this with her father. From today his lot, he does not need anything. The entire payment will be considered a ransom for her. Even her father couldn't refuse it. Qin saw that Wanner was not happy. Qin turned around and realized that he was right. A divine spear, a damaged divine weapon, will be auctioned today. Then Wang saw that Qin was sitting in front of him. He ran up to him and put his hand on his shoulder, saying that this was his place, so he should not sit here and should leave. Wanner immediately intervened and said that this was her guest, so there was no need to be so rude. Wang panicked a little, because this place has always been his, and Qin replied that now this is his place. Wang got angry and asked how dare he, because he is a piece of trash on the first level of the spiritual realm, and before he could finish, Qin raised his hand, and he just hit Van with his palm, which just flew off here. Then he got up and holding his face couldn't even say something clearly. Qin told him that he always annoys him, and if he says even one more word, he will kill him. Wang became very angry and an aura appeared around him. He told him that no one would talk to him like that. If he wants to die, then Wang decided to help him. Wanner shouted for him to stop and Wang turned around. Wang could not answer her and only pointed his finger at Qin, and already the girl was angry and ordered him to be silent. Wang calmed down and agreed with her. He sat down at the chair and felt that he had to endure the insult in front of Wanner. But as soon as Qin left here, he wanted to kill him. At that time, someone was sitting behind Qin and informed Fei that he had seen Qin at an auction in Tian. Besides, he had quarreled with Wang Xuan. I show us the Huang family, where Fei was eating berries surrounded by girls. Fei figured that since he was with Wang, this guy was looking for his death. Immediately, Fei dropped the call and called Wang, from which he began to smile maliciously. He told him everything and Wang was very happy, because he thought that he really was some kind of powerful man, but it turned out that he was just a pawn of a fading empire. Wanner then walked up the steps and greeted everyone at her Tian auction. Today they have a lot of truly incredible things. They are several times higher than all previous lots. All the people began to shout with joy and asked her to start soon. The girl was glad and her subordinates began to bring boxes. Today's first lot is a second-class survival pill. She opened the box where the blue glowing pill was lying. She added that alive or dead, flesh or bones, no matter what kind of wounds they get, after eating this pill, they will recover in an instant. The starting price is 10,000 gold, and you need to raise the bid. The bald man immediately offered 15,000. The monster is already 18,000. But Ken was not interested in it. He did not need it. He decided to get some sleep and just wait for the last lot. Immediately, Ken went to sleep and Wang looked at him very viciously. He was just angry and wanted him to sleep because this is his last day. Half an hour later, Wenner congratulated the gentleman on acquiring such a jewel. Next comes the final lot of today's auction. Immediately, two men began to carry him. Ken literally woke up from a dream and wanted to see it as soon as possible. The guy in the back also wanted to get this weapon. The girl said it was a first-class divine weapon. They opened the box and it was a damaged divine spear. Although it is damaged, but it is still a divine weapon. The starting price is 1,000,000 gold and it's time to raise the stakes. Immediately, the guy raised his finger and shouted the price of 1.5 million. He stood up and told everyone that this item was very important to his clan, so he hoped they would show respect. Wanner was angry, because this damn forging and casting clan was trying to bring down the price again, but Kin thought it was his turn. The girl stood in front of him and named the price of 2 million, because she also really needs this thing. Kin paid attention to her and it turned out to be C. The man got angry and didn't understand how she dared to intercept something from their clan and ordered her to leave. She took off her hood and looked at the man very viciously. He immediately realized that this was the Death Clan and therefore was very scared. He sat down and realized that since the Death Clan had intervened here, so surely the young master wouldn't blame him. Immediately she laughed and said that now this thing is hers. But Ken stood up and said that he was offering a price of 3 million, which made C very surprised. He looked at her and smiled. C thought this guy did it on purpose. Van got very angry and didn't understand where this brat got so much money from. Wanner asked everyone who would give more. Everyone looked at each other and thought. If so, Wanner said that then the damaged immortal weapon of the first rank should go to Kin and blew him a kiss, from which the protagonist was very surprised and even embarrassed. Then she decided to introduce another slot. This time the final one, the black level divine art technique, Thunderstorm Palm. Immediately everyone screamed and she said that the starting price was 5 million gold and it was time to start. Immediately everyone intervened and shouted different amounts. Wang stood up and shouted the sum of 10 million. The man in the back offered his sum of 12 million. Van got very angry and shouted what it meant because he needed this thing. Fei sent him a message saying he had to get it, so he apologized to him. Wang shouted the sum of 15 million and Wang became even more angry. He didn't understand why Fei was doing this and he also had to help him. He wanted Wang to teach Kin a lesson, but that's not going to happen now. C noticed that he offered only some 15 million and realized that he also wanted this technique. She offered 18 million. Then Kin approached her and covered his mouth with his hand. He asked her not to be afraid of him and listen. C didn't understand why she should suddenly listen to him. She decided to offer 20 million. But I immediately thought and agreed with Ken and he was very happy. She didn't understand why she should listen to him and was a little embarrassed. Wanner said that since no one raises the bid, then this jewel is now Huana. He started laughing because he got a black level technique. He asked her not to forget what he had told her. When leaving, the protagonist added that he lives in a guest house in Tian and asked her not to forget to come to him, and he would go himself. A moment later, he went to Wanner and she thought that Kin was taking too long, to which the protagonist replied that he was only able to come. She thanked him from the bottom of her heart. He also thought that she was a great fellow. That's what everyone says, you can't cheat, you won't sell. He didn't even think that she would be able to sell equipment for such a price. He asked if he owed her something for it. She approached him and said that she really should. In that case, Kin pulled her to him and hugged her. He touched her lips and asked if he could ask for something. She thought hard and thought about a certain case. They almost kissed, but Kin decided not to tease her anymore, and therefore asked her to just bring his thing. She called for the ring and, clearing her throat a little, said that everything was here. This ring was a warehouse. Their auction house was giving it to him. He put on the ring and immediately realized that it was a medium yellow level storage ring. He then told her that if in the future Wang invited her to excavate ancient ruins in the future, then she should tell him. He was also going to go there and said goodbye to her as he left. But Wanner didn't understand what ancient ruins he was talking about. After that, they show us the Big Tan Avenue, where there were a lot of different people. In his previous life, he had already known Wanner, but then, shortly after returning from the ancient ruins, she was forced to marry Wang because he had wove a whole conspiracy against her. Unfortunately, after the wedding, Wang showed his true face and turned his wife's life into hell and started beating her. Qin knew that in his previous life he could not pull Wanner out of this abyss, but this time he would definitely give her heaven. After late at night at the inn, Qin sat and took pills. Ordinary warriors at the first level of the spiritual realm can only take one tempering pill. More talented ones can take about 3 at a time. Warriors who have reached the peak of development can drink 10 pieces at once, and he has the power of Yazi, having no equal in physical strength. 150 pills will be enough for his eyes. He absorbed all of them and a certain golden phoenix appeared. Immediately, he fell and clutched his chest. Then he lifted his chest and his outer clothes literally tore and something happened to him. He was sitting on the floor and when he came to his senses a little bit, there was a phoenix mark on his forehead. He understood that 150 tempering pills really allowed him to break through to the second level of the spiritual realm. He opened the scroll and decided to use the 9-legged golden crow. He appeared beside him and Qin put his hand on his beak and told him to go ahead. He took a small light on his finger and it jumped on his shoulder. He greeted the heavenly flame and at the same time literally juggled it. Qin then used his ring and pulled out the shattered divine spear from it. He told the fire to act and it enveloped the spear in flames. The heavenly mysterious fire can give power to all things. It will be very easy to connect this broken divine weapon and the spear of the god of war with it. Immediately a huge beam of light appeared and the spear was repaired and was as new. He grabbed it and was glad that everything was ready. After improving the broken weapon, the spear of the god of war turned into a divine weapon of the first stage. He struck a pose with it. Qin understood that he would now reach the 5th level of the spiritual realm, and it was all thanks to his spear. And immediately the protagonist lost consciousness and just fell asleep on his bed. After that, we are shown the neighborhood where there was a crowd of people. I'm showing us a certain carriage, from which the old man appeared. He did not understand what had blinded him and assumed that he had seen an immortal weapon of the first stage. He understood that if there really is an immortal weapon of the first stage somewhere here, then he must definitely come up with a way to take it for himself. He did not understand how such a treasure could appear in such an insignificant town of Tan and immediately laughed a lot. Then we are shown the Death Clan in their hall. Near the throne there were pillars with skulls, on top of which there were blue lights. The head sat on the throne and 2 girls bowed their legs in front of him. It was the Wu sisters and they greeted him. The head noticed that they could not cut down King Zhennan and they also failed to buy the thing he needed at auction. The head of the Death Clan is called Ho Siren. He asked them what he should do. C asked that he punish them, but when he got up, he just laughed. Ho approached C and lifted her face, while saying that he had raised them since childhood. Therefore, he definitely cannot punish them. He had a new task for them. He hoped that this time they would cope with it, and the frightened sisters agreed with him. He said that the person who had previously ruined all their plans was called Qin Yu. He is from the Divine Sword Empire, a descendant of the Qin family. Since he killed Lai Jian, he was forced to desert to them in Tan. The Immortal Clan has issued a decree to capture Qin and he entrusts them with this task. C and Yu agreed with him again and immediately left the clan head's palace. Then his smile disappeared and he got very angry. He called them just a jerk because they can't even do a small task, and believed that he had raised them for nothing all these years. And he promised that if he failed this time, he would find new pets. And turning, he went to his throne. The next day, Xiao was standing at the door and Qin, who had just woken up, came out of his room. He asked her why she had called him at such an early hour and assumed that something had happened. She approached him and replied that from today he would live in their palace, because she thought that this inn was not suitable for him. Qin decided to play a joke on her and joked that she missed her fiancé. She asked him not to talk nonsense. She knows that Qin was at the auction yesterday and managed to take Huang Fei's broken divine weapon. Moreover, he also had a fight with Wang Xuan. She thought that Wang Xuan and Huang Fei were nothing, but he offended 2 people at once. Qin joked that she was scared and assured her that as long as she was here, none of these guys would dare to do anything to him. Xiao started shouting and stomping her foot that the Death Clan intercepted the Divine Sword Empire's mission. They sent people to kill him, and I asked him if he understood what position he was in. He stood next to her and put his hand on her shoulder. He asked her if he was not afraid, then why she was worried and suggested that she take a tour of Tan. She didn't even know how to talk to him and then they went ahead. They ate delicious rice buns, watched a circus show, and even after Qin had a bite of meat on a stick. Then Xiao saw a girl she already knew. It was Wanner who was looking at them. Xiao recognized Wanner from the Tan auction house. She didn't even think that Wanner had become so much prettier. Qin looked at her melons and said she was fine too and Xiao asked him to shut up. Qin greeted her and she greeted the 2 of them. Zio was glad, because they hadn't seen each other for 100 years, and asked since when she was so distant and asked to be called not princess, but Syaochka. And of course Wanner agreed with that. She asked Kin if she had bothered him by daring to come here, to which he replied that he had met such a beautiful woman again and there was no worry about it, but still asked her to tell him what the true reason for her visit was. She replied that since Zio was here, she should agree with her. She asked Kin to be especially careful with the Death Clan, but he asked her not to worry, because for him it's nothing. Wanner replied that if so, she wouldn't distract them anymore. Zio hugged the girl and said that since she was already here, she invited her to walk with them, because she had not been to Tian for 100 years and did not remember much anymore, and Kin agreed with her. He hugged the two of them tightly and said that they definitely needed to go together. Wanner was greatly embarrassed by Kin's actions and they quickly went forward. After that, we are shown the Eastern Tian market. A certain man was surprised when he saw these three. All the men were literally shocked that someone was hugging Princess Zio and Wanner at once. They were outraged that he dared to hug them. The girls replied that this young man was received with honors in Tian yesterday. Kin told the girls that their popularity even in ordinary Ding is higher than he expected. Wanner asked Kin not to worry, but Zio noticed that he was in a panic. Then he saw a whip in a large cage, around which there was noise and fuss. The man beat the slave because she wanted to escape. She fell to the ground and she was very sick. She was covered with abrasions. The man was angry and added that he had bought her out and would not let her escape. He even thought about killing her. Wanner heard the voice of a familiar fat man and realized that he was torturing the purchased slave again. Zio became very angry and promised that one day she would rid the entire Tian Empire of the slave trade. Wanner added that this fatty Lai is very arrogant and overbearing. And since he is a relative of the Huang family from the blacksmithing clan, he does whatever he wants. No one orders him. Every month or half a month he humiliates his slaves in public. Zio was not happy that no one could do anything about it. The girl replied to him that these slaves were the property of Fat Lai. It did not concern other people, so there was no reason to interfere. He continued to beat his slave and she fell to the ground. Her back was in wounds from the whip and Li asked her if she would still run away, because he feeds her, gives her water, and she is still dissatisfied with something. The girl was bleeding and even started crying. He ordered her to answer quickly and turning around, she shouted that he was Fat Lai. He had cut out her entire family. If he killed her, she would get him from the other world. Immediately, he kicked her in the stomach with the words that she was still worthless trash and her whole family was the same. If it wasn't for her pretty face, he would have killed her too. He kicked her with such force that she flew off a couple of meters and rolled on the ground. He gave 2 liangs of silver for her, which is a lot of money, and now he is her master. Immediately, he walked up to her and grabbed the chain that was fastened at her neck. He warned her that if he saw her trying to escape again, he would not get off with one beating. Jai Royu became very angry and looked at him with eyes full of hatred. Kin heard Jai Royu's name and was surprised. He didn't expect to see such a thing here. Zio noticed that he was starting to get ready to do something. He grinned. It probably doesn't bode well. Kin believed that this girl definitely needed to be saved and went straight to them. He wanted to protect her, otherwise people would face something terrible in the future and she would become a terrible warrior. Li then released the chain saying that he was tired. He asked the people what they were all staring at, and asked if they had never seen a man who beats his own slave. The slave looked at him very viciously and Li did not even understand why he was afraid of the slave's gay. He wanted to tear out her eyes and grabbed his whip, but Kin stopped his hand and Lai was even surprised. He didn't understand who dared to interfere in his affairs. He told him that he would buy this girl, and he only needed to name the price. Li rudely told him that she was not for sale, so he went to leave. Kin noticed that she had just said that she had been sold against her will, in which case he would also buy her back by force. Li started laughing and was surprised by his words. He asked if Kin knew who he was and ordered him to roll away from here quickly. The protagonist realized that he had no other choice. Li wanted to humiliate him again, but the fist was already near his face and he hit Li with all his might, from which the fat man's body flew dozens of meters away. People were surprised that this guy hit Fat Lai. They thought that now he was finished, because the fat man is in the clan of blacksmiths. The girl was surprised that someone decided to stand up for her. The fat man got very angry and standing up awakened his power with a cry that he would kill him. Immediately, he used a yellow level technique, the hoof of a wild boar. It almost reached Kin's face, but the protagonist activated a kind of shield that protected Kin and simply knocked him out and threw him up a long distance. He noticed his technique and realized that he was really a pig. He approached the girl and put his hand on her head, saying that from now on she belongs to him. She was surprised and he easily destroyed her shackles. Wanner noticed that he was not ordinary. Zio understood that if Huang Fei found out about this, he would be mad to death. But this fat lie ran into it himself, and Kin just did a good deed. The protagonist picked her up and carried her to the girls, and they all went forward. Everyone was surprised when he left with Sayo and Wanner and didn't understand who he was. They noticed that this time Fat Lie had offended the big man, but others noticed that in the end, Fat Lie is a member of the blacksmithing clan. They will not leave it so easily. Sayo asked Kin what he was going to do with this girl. Wanner added that if he didn't find a place for her, she could temporarily stay at the auction house. Kin asked them not to worry, because he would organize everything himself. He felt that the blood of an ancient demon was flowing in this girl, and it was definitely her. Sayo didn't even think he liked it. Kin told her that this girl has an incredible future, to which Sayo replied that he understands everything and throws dust in everyone's eyes. She is the future demon lord. In a few decades she can lead an army of thousands of evil spirits and condemn all mankind to a terrible existence. Therefore, it is not surprising that in her previous life she hated people so much, and Kin assumed that for sure the years of slavery had left an indelible mark on her heart. Immediately he noticed that it was impossible for her to walk in these ragged rags. Wanner replied, "But the largest trade union, Yanyulu, is located in Tian. She will take them there," and quickly turned around and called them with her. Some time later in Yanyulu, they went inside. Immediately, Wanner was met by a certain girl who greeted her and asked what she needed. She replied that she needed to buy a girl a dress. She understood everything and asked Kin to follow her. When they went inside and Wanner suggested Sayo to take a walk, and then they all met together and she agreed. We are shown Faye, who was glad because he had not been to Yanyulu for a long time. For sure the dress of colored eagle feathers has already arrived. He saw Sayo behind him and told her that it was a coincidence to meet her here, because he just wanted to look for her and did not think that they would suddenly meet here. Turning around, she asked Faye why he was here. Recently, he heard that top quality clothes were coming here, so he thought about coming to see and maybe buy something for Sayo. This dress is made of colored eagle feathers. It is made of eagle feathers of 9 colors. It is very expensive and even in their tan appears very rarely, and since she is here now, I suggested that she go together. Sayo answered him in denial. Immediately, someone started making noise at the top and Faye was surprised. People started shouting because they saw a dress made of colored eagle feathers. Kin told Jai that it suits her very well. We saw a girl in a very beautiful outfit. Faye was surprised and noticed that this girl was just beautiful. Sayo also didn't expect that after changing clothes, this girl would be so beautiful. Sayo was surprised that they were so fast, and Kin replied that they only chose one thing so quickly. Immediately, Faye realized that this was the very dress he wanted to buy and therefore got angry. He shouted that he was the first to see this dress. Kin did not understand what he was talking about and asked that he stole a dress that he only looked after, and Faye agreed. The protagonist asked him if he liked it. Faye said that he should give it to him. He asked to name the price and he would definitely not offend him. Kin replied that he needed his entire clan forging and casting. The girls started laughing because they realized that he wanted to piss Faye off. Wang Fei got very angry and called him a beast. He approached him, grabbed his clothes, and asked if he was mocking him. The protagonist asked not to scare the child. He approached him and whispered in his ear that he was really mocking him, but what could he do? Faye became even more angry and shouted that he had crossed all boundaries. Immediately, someone shouted to Faye, and when he turned around angrily, he asked who was there. It was Fatty Lai, who said that Faye should help him. He said that he was beaten and his slave was also stolen. He is his servant, so Faye was insulted when they did this to him. Faye was surprised when he heard this. Kin put his hand on Faye's shoulder and asked if he had hit his man. Immediately, the fat man started shouting at Kin and explained that he was the one who beat him and stole his slave. Faye told Kin that he still remembers that scene of meeting Sayo. He did not want to embarrass him, but the protagonist decided to humiliate him again. Faye immediately apologized to Sayo and added that this man should die. Sayo replied to him that he could not disrespect the royal palace. He asked her if she really wanted to move out of the palace for him. Sayo replied again that he was her fiancé, and Faye was very angry. He agreed with this, but warned that when his mentor returned, even their palace would not be able to protect him. Immediately, he quickly headed for the exit and said goodbye to her. The fat man was telling Faye that he couldn't just leave it, because he would lose face. But then he hit him, or flew into the air with the words that he should go away. He literally drove it into the wall. Sayo warned Kin that his ancient ancestor would come here in person very soon, but he assured that everything was fine, because he would sort it out. He also added that since they are here, they can buy whatever they want. Sayo and Wanner were surprised and very happy, but Sayo pays for everything, which made her petrify. After that, we are shown the Tianhin. Wanner said that now they can disperse. Sayo asked him not to do anything wrong with this girl, and Kin assured him that he was definitely not a scoundrel, which made Jai a little embarrassed. Sayo immediately turned around. After that, Kin and Jai were sitting in his room and she decided to ask why he bought her out. He told her that she was alive, so why ask unnecessary questions? He asked her to remember that there are also many good people among people. When he left, he said that she should sleep, and he would be in the next room. When he closed the door, he thought that now he could calmly wait for Jai Royu's inner powers to awaken. She sat silently on the bed and immediately her eyes began to glow red. Then we are shown the blacksmithing clan. Faye was standing in front of the head of the head. He was a little angry and the head told him that they had been taught many times to stay calm if something happens. But now he asks to look at himself. He is so angry at a stray dog and considered it a disgrace. This was the head of the Huangting forging and casting clan. Faye got down on his knees and said he would do what his father taught him. Huangting asked him not to hurry, because his mentor would arrive in 3 days, and then it would be possible to go to Chan. And when the time came, Lai would be in his hands. But what is even more important is the upcoming Sacred Fire competition. Faye replied that he knew, and promised that this time he would definitely win. Huangting laughed, because with the support of his mentor, he will definitely take the first place, and that's how they will surpass the Chan dynasty, which Faye agreed with. It turned out that he was his father. After it was the middle of the night, Qin was sleeping on his roof, and 2 assassins from the assassin clan immediately appeared. They pointed their swords at him and Qin asked why she was inactive. They were sisters C and Yu. From this question, she was greatly surprised and standing up, Qin stretched sweetly. He asked her what was probably uncomfortable at night in a veil. They took off their hats and C asked him if he was awake yet. The protagonist replied that 2 unreal beauties were standing by his bed in the dead of night, so he definitely could not sleep. C then aimed her sword at his throat, but stopped the sword. C said that if so, then he should understand why they are here. He asked them to stop pretending, because they are not murderers at all. Yu asked where he got the information about the Death Clan from. Qin realized that they had found out something and put away the sword of C. They remained silent in thought. The protagonist told them that it was none of their business. What and how he knew, everything she needed to know. The Death Clan is clearly not the best place, but it's not too late to get on the right path. C replied that it was easier said than done. He and his sister have had Death Clan seals for a long time. Until these tags are removed, they will not be able to leave. They didn't look for ways to remove them on their own, but they know that the sacred fire of the 6th rank and higher can help. Then he got out of bed and asked to come over. C didn't know what he wanted and Qin grabbed her hand and asked her not to be afraid and just come over. He pulled her to him and the son was surprised and asked what he would do. Qin explained that he would rid her of the Death Clan seal. He pressed on her stomach and the golden crow literally flew into her. Immediately, the seal began to disappear and Ci's legs gave way and she fell to the floor. The yin energy was dissipated. She realized that her body harbored a sacred fire of the 6th rank. Qin was surprised that she thought about the 6th rank and replied that she underestimated him too much. He confessed that he actually owns the sacred fire of the 9th rank. C and Yu were surprised by his words. Qin said it was her turn now. A moment later, her mark disappeared and Yu was surprised. The protagonist said that now he has rid them both of the seals, and from now on, the Death Clan will no longer be able to control them. The sisters began to hug and rejoice greatly. He decided to ask them again if they would agree to follow him and serve him. They both nodded to each other and said that they would both serve him from now on. Qin turned to C. As he had told him before, her technique has a flaw. It definitely belongs to the initial black level, but she only manages to use it within the yellow level. He decided to fix it all and touched her forehead. He started pouring rune magic. Her current level of cultivation corresponds to the 2nd spiritual realm, which is why she cannot train more powerful sword techniques. When she reaches the 3rd spiritual realm, he will be able to pass on a medium black level technique to her. C was very happy and thanked him. Then he asked Yu if she had the arrow of the sun god with her and she agreed. She began to create a bow and arrow and Qin told her that he would give her an entry-level black technique that would fully unlock the potential of her weapon. Immediately something started happening to her. The girl asked him if he had received all these gifts during his stay in the desert lands. Qin replied to her that when the time arrived, they would find out everything. Then he noticed that the hour was already late and invited them to go to bed, from which the girls were very surprised. The girls understood what he was driving and immediately told him that it was time for them to leave. When they left, Qin lay down on the bed and thought. According to his estimates, the Taoist elder should arrive here soon. And there, the Sacred Fire competition is not far away. The Sacred Fire competition is held in Tian City once every 3 years. It is jointly organized by 4 great sects that guard Tian from 4 sides. The purpose of the event is to select the best student for his subsequent cultivation to the level of a Master of Temporary. The 4 great sects are the Buddha Heart Temple, the Polar Sun Clan, the Ruthless Sword School, and the Jade Fairy Clan. They are constantly competing with each other, but remain in a roughly equal position. At one time, the Taoist elder also went through this competition and emerged victorious from it. This allowed him to achieve incredible success. The 4 great sects possess rich spiritual knowledge. Their heads are comprehensively gifted. With the help of their instructions, any student can achieve unprecedented heights. For this competition, the 4 great sects jointly produced one pill, the Power Release Pill. It will go to the winner of the competition. The spiritual energy contained in it is enough for him to break into the 5th spiritual realm in an instant. Breaking into the 5th spiritual realm, he will be able to subdue the 3rd beast, the lion Suene.